The call that made the galaxy witness. Humanity's power commander Alan Wright sat in the quiet control room of Earth Defense Station Alpha. The year was 2157, and humans had built homes on Mars and Europa, but had not yet traveled beyond their solar system. Alan looked at the stars through the large window. He often wondered what was out there. "Commander, we're picking up something strange," said Officer Kate Bell, her eyes fixed on her screen. "What is it?" Alan asked, walking over to her station. "A signal, sir, from deep space. It's not one of ours." Alan felt his heart beat faster. This could be it, the moment humanity had been waiting for. "First contact. Can we decode it?" he asked. "Working on it now," Kate said, her fingers moving quickly over the controls. The room fell silent as everyone gathered around Kate's station. After 10 minutes, she looked up with wide eyes. "Sir, I think it's a distress call." Within hours, scientists across Earth worked together to fully decode the message. Alan sat in a meeting room with the United Council of Earth, the group of leaders, who made decisions for all humans. "The message is from a species called the Novalians," explained Dr. Paul Green, the head scientist. "They're under attack by something called the Drakari Empire. They're asking for help from anyone who can hear them." "It could be a trap," said General Linda Carter, frowning. "We know nothing about these aliens." "But if it's real," Alan said, "if there are people out there being hurt and we could help but choose not to." The council talked for 3 days. In the end, they decided to send one ship, their newest and best ship, the Horizon. It had an experimental engine that could, in theory, travel faster than light. Captain Susan Miller was chosen to lead the mission. She had been the top student in the Space Academy and had led 3 missions to the outer planets. As she walked through the horizon for the first time, she felt the weight of what they were about to do. "Captain on deck," called Jack Harris, her tactical officer, as she entered the bridge. "At ease," Susan said. "Are we ready for launch?" "Yes, Captain," said Lisa Peterson, who handled communications. "All systems are green." "The warp drive is operational," added Engineer Maria Rodriguez. "It's never been tested at full power, but all simulations show it should work." Science Officer Daniel Clark was checking data on his screen. "If these calculations are correct, we should reach the coordinates from the distress call in about 2 weeks." Susan looked at her crew. They were the best Earth had to offer, brave, smart, and ready to face the unknown. "Let's make history," she said. The launch was smooth. The Horizon left Earth's orbit and headed toward the edge of the solar system. Once they were past Neptune, it was time for the real test. "Ready the warp drive," Susan ordered. The ship hummed and vibrated as the new engine powered up. Stars outside the viewports began to stretch into lines. "Warp in 3, 2, 1, counted Maria. There was a flash of light, and suddenly the stars looked different. They had done it. They were traveling faster than light. The 2 weeks passed quickly as the crew prepared for first contact. They studied the Novalian message over and over, learning what they could about these aliens who had called for help. "We're approaching the coordinates," Daniel announced one morning. "Dropping out of warp in 10 minutes. Susan straightened her uniform. "Battle stations, just in case. I want shields up the moment we exit warp." The crew moved with purpose, readying the ship for whatever they might find. The horizon slowed, and the stretched stars returned to normal. What they saw made them all freeze. A large, dark ship with sharp edges was firing weapons at a smaller, smooth vessel. The smaller ship was damaged, with parts of it glowing from fires. "Scan both ships," Susan ordered. "The smaller ship matches what we know about Novalian design," Daniel said. "The attacking ship is unknown, but likely Drakari based on the message." "The Novalian ship has life signs," added Jack. "About 30 beings. Their ship is failing. Life support is almost gone." Susan didn't hesitate. "Position us between the Novalian ship and the attacker. Lisa, open a channel to the Drakari." The Horizon moved forward, placing itself as a shield for the wounded Novalian vessel. "Channel open," Lisa said. "This is Captain Susan Miller of the Earthship Horizon," Susan announced. "We demand you cease fire on the civilian vessel immediately." There was a pause, then a harsh voice answered. The universal translator they had built based on the Novalian message struggled, but managed to turn the strange sounds into English. This is War Admiral Zikrath of the Drakari Empire. Remove your vessel or be destroyed with the Novalian garbage. Susan looked at her tactical officer. Jack, what are we facing? Their ship is much larger than ours, Jack said. Heavy weapons, strong shields. They outgun us at least 3-1. Susan nodded. Lisa, send a message to the Novalian ship. Tell them to move behind us and prepare to be boarded. We're going to get their people to safety. Captain, Maria called from her station. I've been analyzing their weapon signatures. Their energy weapons operate on frequencies our shields were not designed for, but I think I can adjust them. Do it, Susan ordered. The view screen lit up with a flash as the Drakari ship fired a warning shot that passed just over the horizon. War Admiral, Sigurath is hailing us again, Lisa said. On screen, Susan replied, standing tall. The alien that appeared was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 eyes. He wore what looked like armor made of black metal. You have 1 Earth hour to withdraw, Zikrath said. Then I will destroy your primitive vessel and continue my business with the Novalians. The Drakari Empire does not tolerate interference. The screen went black. Options? Susan asked her crew. The Novalian ship has moved behind us, Jack reported. They're sending us a message, thanking us. Their ship can't move far, Daniel added. Too damaged. Maria looked up from her console with a smile. I've modified our shields. The Drakari don't know it, but their weapons might not be as effective as they think. Susan nodded and looked out at the stars, at a universe that had suddenly become much larger and more dangerous. We came to answer a call for help, she said firmly, and that's exactly what we're going to do. As the hour counted down, humans prepared to make their stand. The first time Earth would fight for another species, the first time humans would show the galaxy what they were made of. The call had been answered. Now it was time for humanity to be witnessed. The call that made the galaxy witness humanity's power. The hour given by War Admiral Zikrath was almost up. Captain Susan Miller watched the countdown timer on the main screen of the horizon. Her crew worked quickly at their stations, preparing for what would come next. Status report, Susan ordered. Shields modified and at full power, said Engineer Maria Rodriguez. I've set them to distribute energy instead of just absorbing it. If my calculations are right, we might be able to redirect some of their attacks back at them. Weapons ready, Jack Harris reported from the tactical station, though I don't know how effective they'll be against their armor. The Novalian ship is stable for now, Daniel Clark said, looking at his science readings. We've helped them repair their life support, but their ship can't fly far. Susan nodded. Lisa, open a channel to the Novalians. Communications Officer Lisa Peterson worked her controls. Channel open, Captain. A face appeared on the screen. The alien had light blue skin, large silver eyes, and no visible hair. It spoke, and their translator converted the sounds. Captain Miller, we thank you for your bravery, the Novalian said. I am Captain Elon of the research vessel Starbright. We did not expect anyone to answer our call, especially not a species we have never met. We couldn't ignore someone in trouble, Susan replied. Can your people be moved to our ship if needed? Yes, Elon said. But you must know, the Drakari never show mercy. They have conquered many worlds. Your ship, though impressive for a new spacefaring species, cannot stand against their weapons, Susan smiled. Humans are full of surprises, Captain Elon. The screen suddenly split, showing War Admiral Zikrath's gray face on the other half. Your time is up, he said. Move aside or be destroyed. Susan stood tall. We will not move. We came in peace to help those in need. You fired upon them without cause. We will defend them. Zikrath made a sound that might have been laughter. Your primitive ship is no match for Drakari power. This will be a quick lesson for your species. The screen went dark. Seconds later, the Drakari ship fired its main weapons. Bright green energy, beams shot toward the horizon. Brace for impact, Susan called. The ship shook, but not as badly as they expected. Maria's console lit up with readings. "Shields holding," she shouted with excitement. "The energy distribution is working. Their weapons are designed to break through normal shields that just try to block energy. Ours bend and redirect it instead." "Can we use that?" Susan asked. Maria nodded quickly. "Yes. If they fire again with the same power level, I think I can send some of it back along their beam path." "They're charging weapons again," Jack warned. "Everyone hold on," Susan ordered. "Maria, do it as soon as you can." The Drakari fired again. This time, the Horizon's shields glowed with a strange blue light. The green energy from the Drakari weapon seemed to swirl around the ship. Then part of it shot back along the same path. On the screen, they watched as their redirected energy hit the front of the Drakari ship. A small explosion bloomed where their weapons control systems were located. "Direct hit to their main weapon array," Jack called out. "They've lost about 30% of their offensive capability." The bridge crew cheered. Susan quickly raised her hand for silence. Lisa opened a channel to the Drakari ship. When Zuckrath's face appeared, his 4 eyes were wide with shock. "This is Captain Susan Miller of Earth," she said firmly. "We came, in peace, to help those in need. You fired upon us without provocation. Consider this your only warning. Humanity will not stand idle while the innocent suffer. Withdraw now, or witness what we're truly capable of." There was silence on the bridge as they waited for a response. Finally, Zuckrath spoke. "This is not possible. Your technology cannot be this advanced. You are a new species. You have not even spread beyond your own star." "Yet, here we are," Susan replied calmly. "What's your decision, War Admiral?" Zuckrath seemed to speak to someone off-screen. Then he turned back with anger in his eyes. "This is not over, human. The Drakari Empire will not forget this insult." The Drakari ship slowly turned away, and then jumped to faster-than-light travel, disappearing from their sensors. The bridge was quiet for a moment, then erupted in cheers. Susan allowed herself a small smile before raising her hand again. "Good work, everyone. But this isn't over. Lisa, get Captain Elan back on screen." The Novalian captain appeared, his silver eyes even wider than before. "Impossible," he said. "No one stands against the Drakari and succeeds. No one. We need to get your people to safety," Susan said. "Is there somewhere we can take you?" "Yes," Elan nodded. "Our nearest outpost is in the Lyra system, about 3 light days from here. But you should know, the Drakari will return with more ships." "Then we'd better hurry," Susan replied. "We'll begin bringing your people aboard right away." As the Horizon's crew worked to help the Novalians, Maria came to stand beside Susan at the viewport. "You know," Maria said quietly, "we were lucky. If they had used different weapons or fired at full power, my shield trick might not have worked." Susan nodded. "I know. But now they think we're more powerful than we are. Sometimes perception is as important as reality. Do you think they'll come after Earth?" Maria asked. "Almost certainly," Susan replied. "But we'll be ready. And we won't be alone anymore." Within hours, the 30 Novalians were aboard the Horizon. Their ship, too damaged to save, was set to self-destruct to prevent the Drakari from taking its technology. As they prepared to depart for the Lyra system, Susan gathered her senior officers. "What we've done today changes everything," she said. "Humanity is now part of something much bigger than our solar system. We've made both friends and enemies. When we return to Earth, nothing will be the same." The Horizon jumped to warp speed, carrying humans and Novalians together, the first alliance between Earth and another species. On the Drakari ship, now rejoining their fleet, War Admiral Zuckrath sent a message to the Empire's Central Command. New species had entered the galactic stage. A species with unexpected power and strange technology. A species called humanity, and the galaxy would soon witness much more of what humans could do. The call that made the galaxy witness. Humanity's power. The Horizon arrived at the Novalian outpost in the Lyra system after 2 days of travel. It wasn't a planet, but a large space station built inside a hollow asteroid. As they approached, several small ships came out to meet them. "They're scanning us," Daniel Clark reported from his science station. "Not weapons scans. I think they're just curious." "Can't blame them," Captain Susan Miller said. "They've probably never seen a human ship before." Lisa Peterson looked up from her communications panel. "Captain Elan is requesting permission to speak to the station leaders about us. He says they're very excited to meet us." "Tell him, of course," Susan replied, "and ask if we can dock." Soon the Horizon was connected to the Novalian station. Susan selected a small team to go aboard. Herself, Daniel to study their technology, Lisa to help with communication, and Jack Harris for security. When they stepped through the airlock, they found themselves in a large room filled with Novalians of different heights and clothing styles. At the front stood a group of older-looking Novalians wearing silver robes. "Welcome, humans," said one who stepped forward. "I am Elder Vela, leader of this outpost. Captain Elan has told us what you did. You saved 30 lives and stood against the Drakari. We are forever grateful." Susan bowed slightly. "We're glad we could help. We hope this will be the beginning of friendship between our peoples." "More than friendship," said another elder. "Captain Elan says your technology confused the Drakari. This is something we must discuss." The humans were led to a meeting room with a large round table. Other aliens were already there, not just Novalians. "These are representatives of the Coalition of Free Species," Elder Vela explained. 17 different civilizations that have joined together to resist Drakari expansion. Susan and her team sat down, surrounded by creatures of all shapes, sizes, and colors. One that looked like a tall insect with 4 arms spoke first. "I am Admiral Threlkon of the Mantari Defense Force," it said through a translator device. "While we appreciate your help to the Novalians, I must be direct. Your species has not even fully settled your own star system. What real aid could you offer against the Drakari Empire, which controls hundreds of worlds?" Jack Harris frowned, but Susan touched his arm to keep him calm. "We don't claim to be as advanced as you in every way," Susan replied, "but sometimes a fresh perspective can see solutions others have missed." "Like your shield technology," said a reptilian alien. "Captain Elan says you reflected the Drakari weapons back at them. How?" "Our engineer modified our shields to redistribute energy rather than just block it," Daniel explained. "It was a theory we've been working on for years." The alien representatives looked at each other with surprise. "We've never considered such an approach," admitted the reptilian. "Our shields are designed only to absorb or block." "Lucky chance," scoffed Admiral Threlkon. "The Drakari fleet has thousands of ships. One small victory means nothing." Before Susan could respond, a new alien hurried into the room. This one looked almost like a cloud of blue gas contained within a clear suit. "Urgent news," it said, its voice sounding like whistling wind. "Our deep space monitors have detected a Drakari battle fleet, 30 ships. They've changed course and are heading directly for the human solar system, bypassing all coalition territories." Susan felt her blood run cold. "They're going straight for Earth?" "Yes," said the gaseous alien. "They will arrive in approximately 3 Earth weeks." The room erupted in worried conversation. Susan looked at her team and saw the same fear in their eyes that she felt. Earth had only 4 ships capable of interstellar travel, all prototypes like the Horizon. Against 30 Drakari warships, they wouldn't stand a chance. Elder Vela raised her hands for quiet. "This is most concerning. It seems the Drakari see humanity as a threat they must eliminate quickly." "We need to warn Earth," Susan said, standing up. "We need to leave immediately." "Yes, go," Elder Vela nodded. "But know this. The Coalition will discuss what aid we can offer. Not all of us agree with Admiral Threlkon's assessment." As they prepared to leave, Daniel pulled Susan aside. "Captain, I've been studying the data we got from our scans of the Drakari ship. There's something interesting about their weapon systems." "What is it?" Susan asked. "They use a type of psychic suppression field before attacking. It paralyzes, most species for a few crucial seconds. But based on my analysis of our brain patterns compared to the Novalians, I don't think it works on humans. Our neurological structure is too different. Susan considered this. That could be a significant advantage. Good work, Daniel. Back on the horizon, the crew prepared for emergency warp travel back to Earth. As they pulled away from the station, Lisa received one final message. "Captain, it's from Elder Vela," she said. "She says they're sending all the data they have on Drakari fleet movements and tactics to help us prepare. The journey back to Earth took 10 days at the horizon's maximum safe warp speed. When they arrived, the United Council was already in emergency session, having received their advance messages. In the Grand Council chamber, Susan and her crew gave their report. The room fell silent as they explained the Drakari threat. 30 warships, General Linda Carter said grimly. And we have only 4 ships with warp capability, including the Horizon. 3 weeks to prepare, said another council member. It's not enough time to build more ships. Then we don't fight them conventionally, Jack Harris said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at him. What do you mean, Lieutenant? Asked the council president. Jack stood up, his tactical mind working quickly. The Drakari expect us to defend Earth. They expect us to wait for them to come to us. What if we don't? What if we take the fight to them instead? Attack a force that outnumbers us 7-1, General Carter asked skeptically. Not their whole fleet, Jack explained. Their command structure. Every fleet has a brain. Cut off the head, and the body falls. Susan nodded slowly, seeing Jack's plan take shape. We won't win by matching their firepower. We win by being unpredictable, by doing what no other species would think to do. And what's that? Asked the council president. Susan looked around the room, at the faces of humanity's leaders, and then at her brave crew. We show them that humans don't follow the rules of war that they're used to. We show them that challenging Earth was the biggest mistake they ever made. As the council debated, messages went out to Earth's other ships, the Defiant, the Warspite, and the Intrepid. A plan began to form, a plan born of human creativity and desperation. 3 weeks wasn't long, but it might be just enough time to prepare a surprise for the approaching Drakari fleet. A surprise that would make the entire galaxy witness humanity's true power. The call that made the galaxy witness. Humanity's Power Earth worked day and night for 2 weeks preparing for the Drakari fleet. Captain Susan Miller watched from the window of the space station as workers moved around her ship, adding new equipment and weapons. Will it be enough? Asked Lisa Peterson, standing beside her. It has to be, Susan replied. The council approved Jack's plan. Operation Thunderstrike begins tomorrow. The plan was bold. Instead of waiting for the Drakari to reach Earth, the 4 human ships would go out to meet them. But not in a direct attack. That would be suicide. Instead, they would use the one advantage humans had, unpredictability. Daniel Clark entered the room with his tablet. Captain, I've finished studying the Coalition data on Drakari ships. I've identified the command vessel in most fleet formations. They always put it in the center, surrounded by the others. Susan nodded. Good work. That matches what Jack thought. Have you finished the neural interface testing? Yes, Daniel said. The combat drones respond perfectly to human pilots through the neural link. No other species uses this kind of technology. The Drakari won't know what they're facing. Later that day, the 4 ship captains met for a final briefing. Besides Susan, there was Captain Eric Jones of the Defiant, Captain Ben Nelson of the Warspite, and Captain Olivia Garcia of the Intrepid. My engineers have installed the stealth technology on all ships, Susan told them. The light-bending metamaterials should hide us from Drakari sensors, at least for a while. My team has added the EMP weapons, Olivia said. They should penetrate standard shields and disable their electronic systems temporarily. Eric looked at the star chart. The Drakari fleet will pass this neutron star. We can use its radiation to mask our approach. And my tactical team has the combat drones ready, Ben added. 200 units, each with a human pilot linked remotely. They spent hours going over every detail of the plan. There was no room for error. The fate of Earth depended on it. The next morning, the United Council held a ceremony for the crews. The council president spoke to them about courage and duty. Then Lisa Peterson stepped forward with a message she had written. "The coalition needs to hear this too," she explained. "I've set it to broadcast on all their frequencies." Lisa stood tall and spoke clearly. "To any who would threaten Earth or our allies, know this. Humans spent thousands of years fighting each other before looking to the stars. What we learned from our own violence, we now bring to defend peace. We do not seek war, but we've mastered it. You have been warned." As the 4 ships prepared to leave Earth, Susan addressed her crew one last time. "What we do today isn't just for Earth," she said. "It's for every species that has lived in fear of the Drakari. Today we show the galaxy what humans can do." The journey to the neutron star took 5 days. During that time, the ships stayed in formation, running silent. Engineer Maria Rodriguez made final adjustments to their special equipment. "The quantum disruptors are ready," she told Susan on the last day. "When activated, they'll make our ships phase between dimensions for about 10 seconds at a time. We'll be untouchable during those moments." "How many times can we use them?" Susan asked. 3 times per ship before the power cells are drained," Maria said. "We have to make them count." Jack Harris came to the bridge with his tactical plans. "The Drakari will be here in 6 hours. Their sensors will be affected by the neutron star's radiation. That's when we strike." When the Drakari fleet arrived, they moved just as Jack had predicted. Their 30 ships formed a protective circle around their command vessel, moving slowly because of the radiation interference. "They can't see us," Jack whispered, even though the Drakari couldn't hear him. "Their sensors are working at minimum capacity." Susan gave the order. "Begin Operation Thunderstrike." The 4 human ships moved silently toward the Drakari fleet, their stealth technology hiding them from view. They got within striking distance without being detected. "Target the command ship," Susan ordered. "Quantum disruptors ready. On my mark. Now." The 4 human ships activated their quantum disruptors at the same time. They seemed to flicker like ghosts as they slipped through the Drakari formation, passing right through their defensive line. Before the Drakari could react, the human ships fired their EMP weapons directly at the command ship. Its shields flickered and died, and its weapons went offline. The space around the fleet suddenly filled with hundreds of small objects, the combat drones, each controlled by a human pilot through neural interface. They moved with speed and precision that no automated system could match, darting between Drakari ships and causing confusion. War Admiral Zekrath, commanding the fleet from the central ship, could not believe what was happening. One moment his sensors showed empty space, and the next, human ships were inside his formation and his command ship was disabled. "Impossible!" he shouted. "How did they get past our defenses? Find them and destroy them." But the human ships were already using their quantum disruptors again, phasing out of normal space just as the Drakari fired at them. The shots passed through empty air where the human ships had been a second before. The space battle that followed became known throughout the coalition as the Ghost Dance. The human ships appeared and disappeared, striking critical systems and vanishing before the Drakari could respond. The combat drones moved in patterns too unpredictable for Drakari targeting systems to track. In his anger, War Admiral Zekrath ordered his fleet into a tight defensive formation, exactly what Jack Harris had predicted he would do. "They're in position," Jack said with a small smile. "They've done exactly what we wanted." Susan nodded. "All ships, initiate Phase 3. As the Drakari fleet huddled together for protection, they didn't realize they were doing exactly what the humans had planned for. The combat drones moved to specific positions around the fleet, each carrying a small quantum disruption device. The trap was set. Now it was time to spring it. Susan opened a channel to the other captains. "Ready for the final phase. The galaxy is about to witness what happens when someone threatens Earth." The human ships moved into their final positions, each captain knowing their role in the plan. On the Horizon's bridge, Susan felt a moment of calm before the storm. This was the moment that would change everything. The call that made the galaxy witness humanity's power. All combat drones in position, Jack Harris reported. The quantum cascade devices are ready. Susan Miller nodded and opened a channel to all ships. This is Captain Miller. Begin final phase. On my mark. 3, 2, 1. Mark. The human ships activated their final quantum disruption, disappearing from normal space one last time. As they did, each of the 200 combat drones activated their small quantum devices in a precise sequence. Alone, each device was harmless. Together they created something the galaxy had never seen before. A cascading quantum field that spread across the entire Drakari fleet. Inside his command ship, War Admiral Zuckrath watched in horror as strange energy patterns danced across his view screens. His weapons officer shouted in alarm, "Admiral! Our weapons are shutting down, engines failing, we can't—" The officer stopped as all ship systems went silent. Emergency lights came on, but nothing else worked. Around them, the other 29 ships in the fleet experienced the same failure. The entire Drakari battle fleet hung powerless in space. The human ships reappeared, surrounding the disabled fleet. On the horizon's bridge, Maria Rodriguez stared at her readings in amazement. "It worked even better than I expected," she said. "The quantum cascade created a temporary subspace bubble that has disabled all their power systems. They're completely helpless." "How long will it last?" Susan asked. "About 15 minutes, Maria replied. "After that, their systems will slowly come back online." Susan nodded and turned to Lisa. "Open a channel to the Drakari command ship and make sure this broadcasts to the entire coalition." When the channel opened, Susan stood tall and spoke clearly, knowing her words would be heard across the galaxy. "This is Captain Susan Miller of Earth. To all who are watching, this is humanity's response to aggression. We offered peace. We were answered with threats. Observe the consequences." She paused to let her words sink in, then continued. "War Admiral Zuckrath, your fleet is disabled. In 15 minutes, your systems will begin to recover. By then, we could have destroyed every ship in your fleet. But unlike you, we do not target those who cannot fight back." On his bridge, Zuckrath seethed with rage and fear. Never in his long career had anyone defeated a Drakari battle fleet. No species had ever shown such capability. And now, these humans, newcomers to the galactic stage, had rendered his mighty fleet helpless without destroying a single ship. Instead, Susan continued, "We offer terms. You will withdraw all Drakari forces from Coalition space immediately. You will pay reparations to worlds you have attacked, and you will sign a non-aggression pact with Earth and all our allies. This pact will be enforced by Earth's new fleet, already under construction." This last part wasn't entirely true. Earth had no new fleet building yet. But the Drakari didn't know that, and fear was a powerful motivator. "You have 5 minutes to accept these terms," Susan said. "If you refuse, we will be forced to demonstrate the full extent of our capabilities. The choice is yours." She signaled Lisa to cut the transmission. Then she turned to her crew. "If they refuse, what's our next move?" Jack asked quietly. Susan looked at him steadily. "We disable their life support systems and tell them they have 1 hour of air left. We won't actually let them die, but they don't know that." The 5 minutes passed slowly. Finally, Lisa's console lit up. "Incoming transmission from the Drakari command ship," she reported. War Admiral Zuckrath appeared on screen, his 4 eyes burning with hate, but when he spoke, his voice was controlled. "We accept your terms, human. The Drakari Empire will withdraw from Coalition space and negotiate reparations. We will sign your non-aggression pact." Susan nodded. "A wise decision, Admiral. A Coalition representative will contact you with details. You are free to leave once your systems recover. But remember this. Earth is watching. Always." The transmission ended. The bridge crew of the Horizon looked at each other in amazement. They had done it. They had saved Earth and changed the balance of power in the galaxy in one bold move. News of the human victory spread across Coalition space before the high 4 ships even started their journey home. On countless worlds that had lived under Drakari threat, people celebrated when they heard that the feared empire had been defeated. When the human ships returned to Earth, they were welcomed as heroes. The United Council held a ceremony to honor the crews. Representatives from 17 coalition species attended, including Elder Vela of the Novalians. "You have done the impossible," she told Susan. "No species has ever stood against the Drakari Empire and won so completely." "We just did what humans have always done," Susan replied. "We adapted. We found a different way to solve the problem." In the weeks that followed, Earth became the center of a new galactic alliance. The coalition formally invited humanity to join, offering to share technology and knowledge. Teams of human engineers began working with alien scientists, combining their different approaches to create new innovations. 3 months after the battle, a Novalian vessel arrived at Earth with a special gift, the original message that had started it all, the distress call that humans had answered when no one else would. At a ceremony to place the message in Earth's museum, Elder Vela spoke to the gathered crowd. "This simple call for help has become known throughout our worlds as the call, the moment that changed everything. When we sent it, we hoped for rescue. Instead, we found humanity, and in doing so, we found our salvation." She turned to face Susan and her crew, who stood nearby. "The galaxy has witnessed humanity's power, but more importantly, we witnessed humanity's choice to use that power in defense of others. That is what makes your species truly remarkable." As Susan looked out at the diverse gathering, humans and aliens standing together, she thought about how much had changed because of one choice. The choice to answer a call for help from the stars. Earth was no longer alone in the universe, and the galaxy would never be the same again.